Paul, the BBC are really stoking the culture wars, aren't they?
They are. I mean, the headline says BBC caught lying again over resignation of Harvard's Claudine Gay.
Can you just explain who that is?
So she was one of the... her title was... President. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you very much. Her and the Penn's president, the big top universities in the States, were in front of Congress. They were being questioned about anti-Semitism on the campus. And they asked, whether it would be OK if there was, if they would discipline someone if they were shouting about Jewish genocide. And it was a very binary answer, yes or no.
Yeah.
And they said, it depends.
Depends on the context.
It depends on the context.
Because apparently there are some contexts where calling for the genocide of Jews is acceptable.
It absolutely isn't, though, is it?
Misgendering someone would be an automatic dismissal. Those words are violent.
That was it, though, Leo, wasn't it? Because the hypocrisy was what bothered people, with the fact that this is a university that has been throwing people out for misgendering or not allowing people to be admitted for something they said when they were 13 on some email. And now they're basically saying calling for the genocide of Jews is OK. But the point is...
BBC.
So Claudine Gay, though, she resigned ultimately, didn't she?
Yes.
And then she was accused of plagiarism, and there was mounting evidence that she had, in fact, plagiarised during her doctoral thesis. And the BBC's headlines... Now, I think we've got an image of the BBC's headline. Harvard's Claudine Gay, a casualty of campus culture wars. And as Andrew Neil pointed out on X... he said, no, you're a casualty of being unable to condemn outright calls for the genocide of Jews and of increasing evidence of widespread plagiarism in her limited academic output.
It's a kind of culture war.
Yeah.
I mean, if your culture is ripping off other people's work and calling for genocide, then...
Don't you think, though, Leo, it's very interesting that we've had Andrew Neil, John Sopel as well, the BBC's USA reporter, saying this is lazy, and as Andrew Neil said, this headline does not meet the regulatory requirement to be accurate and impartial. There's no doubt about that. Now, Paul, what happens here? Why is it that the BBC, more and more now, I've seen them slipping up, where their news articles or their headlines are editorialising rather than retaining that regulatory requirement of impartiality?
Stupidity and cowardice. I don't think it says caught lying. I don't think they believe they're lying in the same way as a serial killer, denies killing all those people. I think they genuinely are either caught being stupid on these matters or they're too cowardly to call a spade because they've invested so much in one side of the culture war that they don't really know how to be neutral anymore.
Leo, is that right? Because, I mean, it was only a few weeks ago that the BBC reported an article about a man involved in the sexual abuse of minors who identifies as female, and the BBC just didn't mention that. They just said it was a woman. And it wasn't a woman. Now, is that just a lie? And it was particularly egregious if it was a lie, because there was a photo of the bloke at the top of the article.
But I mean, that's the new rules for the BBC and the Guardian and people like that, is that if somebody says they're a woman, they're a woman.
It's not a rule. It's something they decide to do.
Yes, but that's what a rule is. Something that people decide to do. So
but what I'm saying is, there's no penalty if they don't do that. They just decide we'll do that.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. And with this, I mean, for years now, Harvard and all these institutions and the BBC have been, just staunch advocates of diversity, equity and inclusion, which sounds great. It's about, it's reducing racism. Actually, it's about hard baking racism into your institution. And you elevate certain minority groups over other people, and you can only be racist or anti-racist. So if you're not, actually being racist, then you're being racist.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? I mean, if the question had been, is it acceptable on campus to call for the genocide of black people? Do you think her answer would have been depends on the context?
No chance.
And if not, well, then therefore there is a double standard.
Well, for years they've been calling for basically the genocide of white people. They've been saying we need to abolish whiteness and all this sort of stuff, and nobody said anything because for some reason it's absolutely acceptable to discriminate against white people. And what's interesting now is that the diversity, equity and inclusion mob have moved on to Jews, and suddenly it's getting all this attention.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because there has been systemic racism at Harvard insofar as that they had a policy so that Asian Pacific students had to score higher on the entrance exam to get in than any other race. But that's OK because they're white adjacent or whatever. Who the hell knows? Something needs to be done, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The DEI department needs to be scrubbed.
It's being enabled by the BBC, though.
Yes, and that's a very, very frightening thing.